Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're jumping straight into a pretty significant and, let's say, unusual situation unfolding in Washington.
Mm,
You've probably seen some headlines swirling around Laura Loomer and this recent shakeup at the National Security Council.
definitely been making waves.
Yeah, so we've gathered the latest news reports, looked at social media reactions, trying to piece together, what's actually happening, who the main players are, and maybe what the fallout could be.
Right.
Our goal here is really just to give you a clear picture without getting bogged down in all the partisan noise or, speculation.
Exactly. We're aiming to sort of distill the key facts and connect the dots. And what's really standing out here, I think, is how someone who isn't formally in the government seems to be having such a direct effect on the government.
Okay, so let's start right there. Who is Laura Loomer? Because for anyone not deeply immersed in this, understanding her background is pretty crucial to grasping just how unconventional her apparent influence is right now.
Definitely. She's been a figure in far-right activism for quite some time, known for pushing various conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I saw mentions of the 9/11 inside job theory.
That's one of them, yes. And she's made some deliberately controversial statements. She's actually identified herself openly as an Islamophobe.
Wow. Okay, and that's led to consequences,
Yeah.
bans from social media.
Correct. Facebook, Instagram, X, she's been removed from major platforms because of her statements. And despite all this, plus two unsuccessful runs for Congress.
Right, 2020 and 2022.
Exactly. Despite that history, she now seems to have gained some pretty significant access and influence. It's surprising.
Yeah,
Wouldn't you say?
it really is. It's definitely a departure from how these things usually work.
It makes you think about the channels of influence, how someone with that kind of public profile manages to exert pressure at the very top levels. It certainly signals a potential shift in power dynamics.
Absolutely. And those channels, it seems, led straight to a really critical moment. We're talking April 2nd, 2025. Laura Loomer was actually in the Oval Office.
Right.
And this wasn't just some quick photo op. Reports say the meeting included President Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Sergio Gore, who runs the Presidential Personnel Office.
That's a heavyweight lineup, not a casual drop-in.
Definitely not. And apparently, Loomer was there to present what's being called opposition research, basically. Potentially negative info on several people working at the National Security Council.
Essentially targeting specific staff members within the NSC.
Exactly. Her argument, as it's being reported, was that these staffers were disloyal, not sufficiently committed to President Trump and his agenda. Sounds like a pretty direct play to get people fired.
It certainly does. And the fact that, the Chief of Staff, the National Security Advisor were in that meeting, it suggests her pitch was, at the very least, heard seriously, regardless of how that kind of information might normally be handled or vetted.
Because the very next day, April 3rd, bam, firings at the NSC. Swift and pretty significant ones. Reports indicate at least 3 senior officials were dismissed. We're seeing names like Brian Walsh, the Director for Intelligence, Thomas Boudry, Senior Director for Legislative Affairs, and David Faith, who is overseeing tech and national security.
These aren't minor roles. These are experienced people.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Some even served during Trump's first term. So to see them pushed out so quickly, reportedly based on this Oppo research from someone like Loomer, someone outside the official structure, it's quite something.
It really is. And beyond those senior names.
Yeah, reports also mention several lower-ranking aides. The numbers vary a bit, maybe 3, maybe up to 6, were also let go. You have to think about the impact on those individuals, too, the disruption.
Absolutely. And beyond the personal impact, losing experienced staff, especially in sensitive areas like intelligence and tech security, can genuinely disrupt the agency's work. It can affect morale, ongoing projects. It potentially introduces instability into a really critical government body. What's just striking is the apparent direct line from this meeting with a private citizen to these significant personnel changes happening almost immediately after.
So you get this major personnel shakeup, and then almost right away, Laura Loomer herself goes public. On April 3rd, she posted on X, talking about her meeting with President Trump.
Right, I saw that.
She framed it as being about strong vetting, needing to protect the president and, national security, essentially presenting her actions as patriotic, supporting his agenda.
Yeah, it's a specific narrative, positioning herself as a loyalist, safeguarding the administration, but As you'd expect, that post and her involvement sparked a lot of reaction.
Oh, definitely. Many people questioning whether someone with her background, without any official role, should be playing this kind of part in, hiring and firing decisions at the NSC.
Which brings us to President Trump's reaction. What did he say?
Well, when reporters asked him about the firings, his response was, well, pretty classic Trump, I suppose, direct. He said things like, always we're letting go of people, and elaborated, saying it was people that we don't like, or people that we don't think can do the job, or people that may have loyalties to somebody else.
Okay, so acknowledging the firings, but framing it broadly. Did he mention Loomer specifically?
He did. He actually confirmed that she recommended certain people for jobs and admitted that he sometimes acts on those kinds of recommendations, just like he might listen to others.
Interesting. So a confirmation of her access and influence, even if not a full-throated endorsement of her, specifically driving the firings.
Exactly. And, the tone seemed quite casual, considering these are pretty significant changes in a key national security body.
That's a really important observation. That casualness suggests a certain comfort level, perhaps, with this non-traditional way of handling personnel. The phrase, people that we don't like, is quite revealing too, isn't it? It hints at criteria that might be more subjective than purely professional.
For sure. And predictably, this whole episode has stirred up a lot of different reactions. We saw Republican Senator Mike Rounds saying publicly that it raises eyebrows, particularly the dismissal of experienced NSC folks with intel backgrounds.
Right. Concerns coming even from within the GOP.
Yeah. And online, on X especially, it's been intense. One user, Noah Crothman, highlighted Loomer's apparent focus on rooting out quote-unquote neocons. Another user, Topicat Cave 2, was questioning the timing, Loomer's motives, maybe linked to her wanting a formal administration role herself. So you see the whole spectrum, people saying good, clean house, and others deeply worried about, national security and just stable governance.
That range of reactions really highlights how divisive this is. And having a Republican senator like Rounds voice concern is significant. It shows this isn't just, partisan criticism from the outside. It's causing unease even closer to home.
And it's important to remember this isn't happening in a vacuum, right? There's some broader context at the NSC.
That's crucial, yes. Earlier this year, there was that directive from National Security Advisor Mike Waltz himself.
The one about reassigning detailees.
Exactly. Around 160 non-political detailees were reportedly being reassigned to ensure better alignment with the America First agenda. So there was already an internal push to shape the staff composition.
Okay. And then there was that other thing, the review about the Signal app and Houthi operations.
Right. That's another ongoing thread. Something President Trump seemed kind of dismissive about when asked recently, but perhaps the most direct parallel, suggesting a potential pattern.
The assistant U.S. attorney in L.A.
Precisely. Reports indicate he was fired after Laura Loomer publicly criticized him on social media. If that connection is accurate, it really strengthens the idea that her influence, amplified online, might be impacting personnel decisions beyond just the NSC.
So putting these pieces together, the earlier Waltz directive, the U.S. attorney firing, now these NSC dismissals, it starts to look less like an isolated incident and more like, well, a demonstration of a particular kind of influence Loomer might wield.
It certainly paints a picture where external pressure, particularly from individuals perceived as loyal allies and amplified through social media, seems to be having a tangible impact on internal government operations and staffing. It's quite a dynamic to observe.
So to sort of wrap this up for everyone listening, it really does appear that Laura Loomer, despite, the controversies and her lack of any official government job, is currently exerting significant influence within the Trump administration. And this influence seems directly tied to these recent NSC firings. Now, whether you see that as a good thing, ensuring loyalty, getting the president's agenda done, or as something deeply concerning for, good governance and stability, that's clearly up for debate.
Absolutely.
But what seems undeniable is just how unconventional and, frankly, unpredictable this whole dynamic feels within this administration.
Precisely. This situation really throws a spotlight on the shifting nature of power and influence, doesn't it? It shows how people outside the formal structures can still significantly shape policy and personnel. The key takeaway, I think, is just recognizing how unusual these circumstances are and thinking about the potential long-term effects on how national security gets managed.
Yeah. And maybe that leaves us to a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Thinking about everything we've just discussed, what does it really mean for national security when someone outside the traditional government system can apparently trigger personnel changes at such a high level. What are the sort of long-term implications of that kind of dynamic for the stability and effectiveness of these really crucial institutions?
Definitely something worth considering.
It certainly gives you something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.